Hey everyone, welcome back to Crime Weekly News. I'm Derek Levasseur.
And I'm Stephanie Harlow.
Here with another episode. This is a sad one. They're always, unfortunately, it seems like today it's always the case, but we wanted to talk to you about something that's trending. It's in the headlines right now, and that's the death of Bob Lee, the founder of CashApp. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stabbings every single day, and so you're probably asking yourselves, why are we covering this one? Well, this is a prominent figure. He was was he a millionaire, Stephanie?
Oh, he's a tech guy, so I guarantee you he's a billionaire. He also was involved in some iPhone app that I forget. It's like the iPhone. What is it? You know when you like the what is it? You know when you like go to pay for something, the Square. He basically
involved
created
in that
this
too.
Yeah, so he's definitely
super
loaded.
underachiever.
Yeah. Right. I know he makes me feel like an underachiever.
Yeah, so we wanted to cover it because obviously many of you are talking about it, but it also brings home this other point of nobody's off limits, right? Everyone's susceptible to this type of violence, and we have to all be cognizant of our surroundings. So we wanted to dive into the details of it, talk to you about it for a little bit today. And without further ado, we're going to get into it. I will say real quick, and I'll mention this on Crime Weekly as well, I apologize for my background. Stephanie's showing me up. I'm in the process of moving to a new studio. It's going to be nicer. There's also another project I'm working on that Stephanie is fully aware of. She's helping me out with, but we'll get into that later. So if the sound sounds a little different, like I have a lot more echo, it's because literally you can't see it, but there's nothing in this space right now other than the background. The shelves are empty. So I apologize if you're listening on audio and it sounds a little different, or if you're watching on YouTube and wondering like what's going on. Is Derek, is he in a
cave?
Yeah.
Is he in a cave right now? You sound fine to me. You probably sound fine to them. You're probably just overreacting.
The audio files will hear it. I know I can hear it in my ears right now, that reverb that you hear when you don't have anything absorbing it, which is why you guys are going to love. I've been posting on my stories. You guys are going to love the new studio because I have all this sound treatment that just, it makes it like you just hear nothing. It's completely dead. Verizon was in there the other day and the guy was like, dude, this is kind of weird. I can hear like my heart thumping and I don't like it. And I was like, exactly what I'm going for, Jeremy. Exactly what I'm going for.
The Verizon guy's name was Jeremy?
It was. We had a very good conversation. He was there for like 2 hours. You know, I have to wait with those guys while they're doing their thing.
Yes.
So I was sitting there working and we were just having small talk or whatever. And he was like, I'm going to be honest, because I wasn't talking to him all the time. He's like, I'm gonna be honest with you, this is a little weird because I can hear my own heart thumping and it's unnerving. I'm like, well, thank you, because that just makes it worth every dollar that I spent to sound treat this place, because it wasn't like that before.
You should have been like, I can hear your heart thumping too, Jeremy.
Yeah, and just shut the door slowly.
Be real creepy.
Yeah. So anyways, if you can hear it, I apologize. If you're like,
if you're an audiophile, okay?
Yeah.
You can hear it.
Stephanie clearly isn't.
Clearly not.
Even with those expensive ass headphones.
Well, it's because they're sticking out of my...
Yeah, they're not. You look like, I told you this before. Shrek. I don't know if it was on camera now. You look like Shrek, because if you notice, we get the same headphones, but mine are in my ears, and like Stephanie has hers, and they're custom fit, but for some reason hers just...
Because I have little tiny baby ears, man. Like
they were custom fit to your head.
I know, but the inside of my ears are so teeny tiny.
So did they get smaller after they made the foam?
They may have gotten smaller. I feel like my brain's gotten smaller in the last year or so, just from being overworked. So it could be that my whole body is just shrinking. Like my skull is shrinking to accommodate my new smaller brain.
It's probably what it is. Makes sense.
Well, let's dive in because we got a little bit to talk about, but this actually just recently happened. It was Tuesday, April 4th. The San Francisco Police Department responded to a 911 call reporting a stabbing in the very early morning hours. And when they arrived on the scene, they found 43-year-old Bob Lee, tech executive and founder of CashApp, suffering from several stab wounds. Officers arrived to San Francisco's Rincon Hill neighborhood around 2:35 a.m. They grabbed him. They rushed Mr. Lee to the hospital, but he sadly died from his wounds. Now, in the wake of his murder with no suspect identified and no motive released, even at this point, we're recording this on Monday, April 10th. They haven't released who did this or why. They kind of think it was just a random act of violence. People are raising concerns about the safety of the city of San Francisco, which reportedly has experienced an increase in crime the past several years. Police data reports that there have already been 12 homicides in the city this year, which is up 20% compared to the same time period as 2022. 2022 saw 56 homicides all year. And now in 2023, by April, we're already at 12. so it doesn't look good. Now, Bob Lee actually no longer even lived in San Francisco. He'd actually moved to Miami, Florida last October, but he was in town for a mobile coin leadership summit, and he decided to get a hotel, stay a few extra days to catch up with old friends. Mobile coin was actually Bob Lee's newest tech startup. So I think he had dinner with friends that night, and then he was walking back to his hotel, and he walked through the area where he was stabbed because it was on his way to his hotel. And reportedly, this neighborhood used to be quite safe to walk through. And now many residents say they won't even leave their homes after dark. One resident said, quote, "Right now it's fever pitch, especially when we have tech titans and captains of industry being murdered on the street. The reality of it is if your boots are on the ground, this is ground zero. Your heart rate is going to increase. And how do I feel? Terrified." End quote. San Francisco's mayor, London Breed, made a statement saying, quote, "The police are actively investigating what happened and will share details as soon as they can. San Francisco is prioritizing public safety, including recently passing our budget supplemental, so we have the police staffing necessary to have more police officers in our neighborhoods and to investigate violent crimes when they do occur." End quote. Now, according to a story from the San Francisco Standard, and this is very disturbing to me, actually. This when I was reading it, it gave me post-apocalyptic kind of vibes. But after he was attacked, after he was stabbed multiple times, Bob Lee could be heard screaming for help. He was actually the one who called 911 for himself to report his own stabbing. It's also been reported that Mr. Lee can be seen on surveillance camera, was on a building, walking west up Main Street after being stabbed. And this video actually shows him approaching a car that was parked with its hazard lights on. And he is trying to ask the person in the car for help. He lifts his shirt up to show that he's stabbed. And he's saying help me, help me. The car pulls away, drives away, which is very upsetting. And then you can see him crossing the street, holding his cell phone. He's calling the police. And then he's walking back down Main Street and he collapses about 20 feet from the front door of a condo complex. It does seem like Bob Lee was killed during an unprovoked attack. Maybe it was a robbery. Once again, they haven't released anything, which is very unsettling because was this a personal attack? I mean, he was a well-known public figure. Was this something that he was attacked because of who he was, or was it just random and people just, somebody wanted his money or whatever? I don't know why you'd have to stab somebody multiple times when you can just say, "Give me your money," and then, move on with your day. But everyone who knew him said that Mr. Lee defied the arrogant tech bro stereotype. He always led with his heart. He gave kindness and understanding to others. He never acted as he is better than anyone. Nobody could see that he would start something with somebody. They feel that he wouldn't have, if somebody said, "Give me your money," he wouldn't have said no. He wouldn't have argued or fought with them. He would have just done it. So we really don't understand what happened here. And Lee is not the only high-profile figure to become a victim of violent crime in the city just recently this week, because only 2 days after he was stabbed, this other guy, Don Carmigiani, who's San Francisco's fire commissioner, he was attacked outside of his mother's home on Magnolia Street in the Marina District. He was approached by 3 men, and these men viciously beat him with a pipe, leading to severe head injuries and a fractured skull, and he was rushed to the hospital. At this point, the status of his condition has not been released. So the media narrative has been to immediately jump to the defense of the city, reporting oh, the crime's not as bad as you think it is. People are just overreacting. They say that compared to cities of similar size, San Francisco actually has fewer homicides a year. I personally think this is the wrong response because it does minimize the victims of these violent crimes. It's almost more people died in 2013 than in 2023. So technically, crime's going down. So ignore these people who have been murdered in the city this year. I think that obviously big cities are always going to struggle with crime and violence. I think it's safe to say you have a crime problem, though, when people are getting stabbed and beaten with pipes in the streets. And, the first response shouldn't be well, it was worse before. It could have been worse before also because there was more people in San Francisco. 10 years ago, the pandemic really hit San Francisco as far as tourism. Also, a lot of people moved out of San Francisco, especially when everybody started working remotely. During the pandemic, people didn't have to be in the big cities anymore to work for these big companies. So a lot of people left the city. So who knows? And also in these articles, they're really focusing on murder, murder's down. But obviously, murder isn't the only violent crime. Rape and aggravated assaults in the city are also up from previous years. There's also a ton of property crime and theft happening. I was just in San Francisco a few months ago, and like literally everywhere we went, people were like, oh, you didn't drive, did you? Like if you drove, make sure you don't lock your car, because if you lock your car, people are going to break your windows and like break into your car to get your stuff. So just make sure like you're not locking your car to make it easier for like robbers to get into your car, which is kind of crazy to me. Like when tax-paying citizens are being told, like, just make yourselves easier victims. Like, just make it easier to victimize you, you know, like that's a problem personally. And we do know that many longstanding businesses and stores have shut down and moved out of the city altogether due to increased and brazen shoplifting. I did feel safe in a lot of areas of the city, but I would not feel super safe wandering anywhere in San Francisco at night, alone or otherwise. I mean, I will say I feel safer in San Francisco than New York City, but that's not like a big flex, you know, that's not saying much. Yeah. But I mean, it's sad, right? Like at the end of the day, he's gone. He had 2 kids, a ton of friends who loved him. Like his dad, I feel so bad because Bob Lee and his dad, they seem to have like this best friend relationship. They were roommates when they lived in San Francisco together. And his dad was like, I lost my best friend. He was so important to me. So it's so sad. He's got a ton of colleagues who respected him and his life work. It will be interesting to see what the police do. You know, if they figure out who did this. Was it a senseless crime? Was it targeted? I don't know. But what do you make of it?
I've seen the stuff on Twitter where it's like, oh, this is some type of conspiracy, right? Like this guy probably is dealing with lots of money. He's affecting people's livelihoods. Maybe there's something going on there. Personally, it's not that I don't believe in conspiracies. I just don't think that's the case here.
There's a conspiracy about this? There's like a conspiracy about this?
Not conspiracy, but speculation that this might have been a targeted attack, right? Because of who he is. I'll say this. This doesn't mean much. If I saw Bob Lee tomorrow, I wouldn't know what he looked like. He's not to me like a tech guy, like an Elon Musk who's recognizable by everybody. I don't think a lot of people, unless you're in the tech space, would know, hey, that's Bob Lee, the founder of CashApp. So that's one thing. The second thing
lots of people in San Francisco are in the tech space.
But he doesn't, you say, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but he doesn't live in San Francisco, right?
Not since October, but I mean, still, so, I mean, he did live there. Yeah.
But I don't think, I don't think most people are walking around saying, oh, that's Bob Lee. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. But I also think that if it was a targeted attack, you're going to make sure you kill him, right? Like, I don't know if stabbing would be the choice of carrying that out. You're running the risk that not only did he see his attacker's face, he may survive his injuries, right? He was allowed to leave that area and kind of wander off. And if that first car had helped him, we may have a different ending to the story right now. Although I'm assuming, based on how quick he fell, he probably had fatal wounds from the start where it hit an internal organ and that was it. But again, I don't know if the attacker knows that at that point. And you're running the risk where if you're hired to do this, to kill this person, you're going to make sure you kill them more than likely with a gun.
Do you think people have guns in San Francisco? I feel like no. Maybe Oakland, but not San Francisco.
Are you being sarcastic?
Oh, I mean, I just don't know. Like, I feel like gun laws are super, super, super strict in California, aren't they? Am I wrong about that?
That's a whole different debate. That's the argument that the pro-gun people would make is even though the laws are very strict, the bad guys don't follow the law. They don't follow the rules. So the people who are doing things like this are going to have guns regardless of whether it's illegal or not because they're bad guys.
Okay. So,
yeah, I think lawful abiding citizens wouldn't have a gun.
Right.
But I still think the bad people are going to have it. And in this case, it was a knife. So, if you want to hurt someone, you can hurt them. But as far as Bob's concerned, it's one of those things where it kind of reiterates what we've said since the beginning, where it doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, rich or poor. If you're chosen by someone, you are susceptible to this type of violence. And the reality is, and I'm not picking on California because I think it's probably up nationally, but in California, the violent crime rate is up 6%. And that's right from, I was just looking it up again, that's right from the Public Policy Institute of California. So it has increased over the last year from 2020 to 2021. That's a statistical fact. Again, not saying it's isolated to California, not saying it's specific to San Francisco. The reality is crime is up. So
crime is up everywhere, I think.
Crime's up.
Yeah.
I mean, this country, I don't think many people out there would say the country's in a good place right now.
Getting real bad.
I don't think anybody, whatever side of the aisle you're on, I don't think we're going, no, actually, I think we're doing pretty good.
Things aren't that bad right now.
Yeah, things are great.
It's like something tragic every single day. And not even like true crime tragic, like on a mass scale. Like
mass scale,
there was just a shooting. Yeah.
Yeah, geopolitically, there's a lot of problems. So I'm not saying like, oh, San Francisco, because this could happen anywhere.
Yeah.
It could happen anywhere to any one of us.
It does happen.
It does.
Everywhere,
And so
yeah.
I think that's the scary thing here is it doesn't matter how much money you have. I wish I could say like, you can still go out, just walk by yourself. You're fine. No, you actually can't. You actually can't because there's some really bad people out there. My guess, without knowing any of the specifics, but just from what you've said here, there is a lot of the homeless population is huge in San Francisco. There's a lot of economic deprivation out there. And I do think that robbery and even, larcenies are up there in San Francisco. So you could have a simple situation of this guy walking by himself. Maybe he's dressed decently and someone sees him and for whatever reason attacks him for his money or whatever. And I know his friends and family are saying he would never fight back. Truly, you don't know, even yourself, just let me finish.
I wouldn't fight back.
Well, that's you. And you probably wouldn't.
Would you?
100% I would. 100%
if you were
I would.
being robbed?
It depends on the situation. What I'm saying is you don't really know how you're going to react until you're in it. So it's not reasonable just because friends have said, oh, he would never fight back. There's things that mothers and fathers do in moments for their kids that they never thought they were capable of. The point being, I don't know Bob Lee. And even though his friends do, we don't know what happened in that situation. It could have been a specific thing where he might have put the knife to Bob and Bob got nervous at that point and decided to smack it away or whatever. And that caused a fight to ensue. We don't know exactly what happened. There's a million reasons why this could have went from a simple armed robbery to a struggle over the knife, which resulted in Bob being stabbed. It could be that simple. So we have to see, but
I would like to know if he was robbed. Like I would like to know that small detail. I know that they know it. And I feel like if he had been robbed and he was missing something, they would have like said that by now to just show you that it was just like, oh, like a run of the mill sort of like robbery. Like what happened?
It could have been, everything might be there though.
He was stabbed multiple times, right? It kind of seems like, and I guarantee you the person was wearing a mask. It kind of seems like someone just ran up on him and then ran away.
But what would be the motive?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess it's possible, especially you see like the knockout games and stuff that people are doing where they're like punching people, just walking by and running and punching them.
Dude.
My guess, if you said, hey, Derek, you got to put money on it. I think it's a situation where the motive is financial. They see this person alone. It's an area where it's known for this type of crime. The person approaches him. Maybe instead of being at a distance, they're really close. They might have the knife to his stomach or his chest. He gets nervous. He tries to back away, or maybe he tries to run. There's a struggle over the knife potentially. And during that struggle, you can be stabbed multiple times because you're grabbing at the knife. They have the knife and they're stabbing you in an attempt to break free of whatever's going on so they can escape. And it does seem like if the intent was to stab them, I would assume the intent would also be to kill them. And they allowed him to get away without killing him. So I would think that whatever was meant to happen in that moment didn't go according to plan from the offender or offenders. We don't know. That's my guess. But overall, you're probably sitting there saying, okay, this is a millionaire, potentially a billionaire. This happened. Why do we care? You should care because whether you're in San Francisco or Texas or Rhode Island or New York, being alone, creating an opportunity where someone could view you as a soft target, an easy target. Doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or a billionaire. He didn't have the security with him. So he's a human being just like you and I. And we just want to put a little fear in you guys, make you aware of it that we may never know what happened to Bob. But the reality is this won't be the last time it happens. So we collectively have to learn from these tragedies and improve on our own situations. And the takeaway here is although you should be able to travel in pairs, take an Uber, take a taxi, don't just entrust that people are good like you are and they'll just, no one's going to hurt you if you don't do something to them first. You may be minding your own business and trouble will just find you. And that's what I take away from a lot of these situations where I personally, bigger guy, some tactical training, I'm usually carrying, to be honest with you. I still don't want to have to use my firearm. So if I have to get gas and it's 11 o'clock at night and I'm not in the best area and I can wait until the morning, guess what I do? I wait until the morning. I wait until the gas station's packed with people, a little less violence during the day when it's broad daylight, everyone can see what's going on. I'll even take the risk, let the gas stay where it is, do it the next morning just to avoid a potential problem where I might come out on top, but do I really? I'm still traumatized by the situation. I don't want to be put through that. So I'm going to do my best to avoid it, even though you may statistically think like I have a better chance of coming out of it okay. It's just something if you can avoid it and your gut's telling you maybe it isn't the best idea, trust that and go with it.
Yeah, I have a big problem with this because I like to walk a lot.
I know. It's crazy that you have to think like that.
Yeah, I don't think like that. Like whenever I go to a new city, the first thing I do is like put all my stuff in the hotel and I just start walking around to figure it. And like most places, like when we were in Salt Lake City, I felt completely safe the entire time in Salt Lake City. I walked miles and miles around that place and I never felt like this is a sketchy part of town. But I mean, it still could have been, right? Like that's the point.
And you were walking during the day, if I remember. You were out there just kind of doing your thing.
Yeah,
it was middle of the business week. You know, it can happen anywhere, but I think less likely during those times.
Yeah. Sometimes I go at night. I should stop that.
But in Utah, I would have told you if you're like, hey, I'm going out to walk the city tonight. I would have been like, no, you're not. What are you doing?
Well, I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah, no.
See, I put myself in stupid like situations, and there's a part of me that's like, well, I shouldn't have to worry about this. Like, you know, I should be able to do what I like. Yeah, in a perfect world, I should be able to just go outside and walk as much as I want and not worry about anybody trying to hurt me. But I don't live in that perfect world, and I would like to continue living in this imperfect world as it is for now.
Yeah.
So I need to definitely like stop being so stubborn about that.
Yeah, no, and I just want to, I know it's for most of you, you already know, in no way, shape, or form when I say these things, is it any form of victim blaming or anything like that. It's taking a tragedy, knowing there's nothing I can do about that specific issue, but knowing that there's something I can learn for it to better protect myself or the people I care about. I know I sound like a broken record. I say that all the time, but that's really the only thing you can take from this, because you're not going to go solve that crime in San Francisco. So you just have to look at the specifics, see what happened, see the environment that victim was in, and try to avoid it, because it's not just specific to San Francisco. It can happen right in your own backyard. So we all are thinking about Bob's family. We're going to think about everybody involved with this. Hopefully we get some answers, not only for his family, but for us as well. So we can further know the details and learn from those as well.
There's a violent stabber out there. I think that's like also
a problem.
It's being missed. Like every single headline I've seen in the past couple of days has been like either the crime is horrible, like San Francisco's a lawless hellscape, or like on the other side, like San Francisco's perfect and everybody's just, and it's like, this isn't about San Francisco. Like this man lost his life, and on top of that, you've got a violent stabber out there somewhere wandering around, and if he did it once, or
he'll do it again.
Like I'm not trying to be like, you know, just assuming this person is a man, but I assume this person is a man. I'm sorry.
I'm attacked. I feel attacked here.
I'm sorry.
I would venture to say you're probably right.
I assume the violent stabber is a man. He's out there. And if he gets away with this, what's to stop him from violently stabbing anybody? Like, if you're okay with doing that, not just once to get away, but like, I'm going to take this person's life. I'm going to stab this person enough times so they die. For what? Like, unless you knew that person and there's an actual reason that you want them to die and that was your motive, this is like messed up. This is psychopathic. So yeah, there's somebody out there that just ain't got no problem walking around just stabbing random people to death. And that's an issue. That's scary.
It is an issue. And I'll throw a wrinkle in there just to throw it out there. And I have nothing, zero, less than zero, to indicate that's the situation here, because it looks like they do have some camera footage. But I have had cases, not murders, but cases where a John was stabbed after a transaction with a sex worker went wrong, where the John doesn't want to pay, or there's a disagreement on money, where usually you'll have sex workers, and I understand why they would do this, very dangerous situation. They'll usually have something on them to protect themselves, usually a knife. I've had situations where we've gotten calls for someone who's just been stabbed. I show up, not fatal, and the person saying, oh, I was just stabbed by this woman. Okay, how do you know her? Oh, I don't know her name, but we just met. We became friends today. Well, where was it? Well, she was in my car, but then she got out and ran. Well, when did you meet her? Like 20 minutes ago. What street? Oh, it was Barton Street. Barton Street's the number one street for that type of scene. So I'm like, okay. So it starts to come together, and then you start to ask the more specific questions once they're okay. Tell us the truth. What was going on here? Okay. I tried to pick her up. We had agreed on something and then refused. And then I tried to get her out of my car and she pulled a knife and there was a struggle in the car. So not saying that's a situation here, but maybe as they're pulling this apart and they're pulling back the layers, maybe they learn more about, maybe it's just not a larceny. Maybe there's something else here. Not saying that, what I just laid out.
I also don't think it's like acceptable to stab somebody because they didn't pay you.
Oh, shit. No, of course not. Does it sound like I was condoning that?
I don't know. But I don't condone that.
That took a turn. No, I'm just saying as far as like you were like, oh, I'm assuming it's a man.
Yeah.
It could be a situation where was there something else here that we're not aware of? We don't know this whole man's life. We don't know what he was involved in, and he may be perfect, but you sometimes can see like sex workers, drugs, different things where you start to frequent these types of environments, you become more susceptible to this type of violence. Again, on the surface, from what I've seen, nothing to indicate that. If my money's on it, I'm only saying it because you got me scared now that I was like saying it's okay to stab people. I don't think that's what I was saying. It might be just
sometimes women do stab Johns, and that's just what happens.
Yeah.
And and then the John's lying to me. And I'm like, tell me what really happened, man.
Yeah, no, I mean.
we just met today and we became friends, and she was in my car. That's your first indication.
Dead ass has happened more times. Not always a stabbing either. Sometimes, a lot of the times it's the larceny where they're like, hey, my wallet's gone. Well, who was the woman? I don't remember her name. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we're gonna try our best. We'll see what we can do. But yeah, that's my takeaway. I hope we learn more. Because it's on the surface, it does look like maybe a robbery gone wrong, but there are other variables, which is why I said what I said, that we could be surprised at the outcome of this. What more does it entail? And although I said it's not likely, as you just laid out, it could be something that someone who knew who he was, recognized him for being someone who was wealthy.
Or knew he was going to be in town for the leadership summit thing.
Yeah.
And then
just happened to know he was going to be walking home.
Well, yeah, like followed him. I don't know.
You would think a guy of that
magnitude,
level that would choose to take transportation as opposed to walking. Although I will say, this isn't to make light of the situation, he's made his millions off digital currency, right? The transaction of money through apps. So he's probably not carrying a lot of cash, if I had to guess. He's probably...
he can still order an Uber, dude.
Well, what I'm saying is, if I'm going to target someone on the street with money, it's probably not going to be the tech bro who's made his money off.
Sure, not if you're trying to kill him for money, you're not going to do that. But if it's like a personal vendetta thing,
right?
Who cares?
Yeah, and you would think at that point you want to make sure you get the job done. I don't know if I'm stabbing him and running, but I guess maybe to make it look like that. Who knows? There's so many variables. Yeah. That's why it's like it's really you can go down the rabbit hole. Yeah. But why? Just take what you know. The man, unfortunately, was stabbed to death. He's no longer here. What can we learn from just that information? And there's a lot. There's a lot. You can take into the specifics of where he was, what he was doing at the time before this went down. And then also, I didn't hit on it. What do you think about this car? And I think a lot of people should weigh down in the comments below because I'm a little torn on it. But what do you think about the vehicle where he approaches it? And decide, it looks like he's injured. I'm assuming they knew he was injured and they just take off. Ugh. What is your take on that?
It's fucked up, man. It's messed up. Like, I am so upset by it. Like, honestly, it's an indication to me. It's a representation of how disconnected they were becoming from each other. And it's very much like, the bystander effect, the psychological sort of effect. And you see it a lot. We've seen it historically with that one case where that woman was raped. I forget her name, but she was raped in the courtyard, and all of these people in the apartment building around were watching it, and they all assumed somebody else was going to call 911. They all assumed somebody else was going to help. So they didn't do it. It's a diffusion of responsibility. And recently, I think maybe a year and a half ago, there was a rape on a train in Philadelphia. And instead of helping this woman, people took out their phones and recorded it. So to me, there's like 20 of you and one of this guy. If you bum rush him, pull him off of her, they were like, well, we thought we would help and get like evidence. Well, you allowed her to like get attacked and assaulted. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Everybody thinks it's somebody else's problem. Somebody else will take care of this, and nobody does. So It's really heartbreaking, honestly. And I understand they were probably scared, right? Like, I get that. But at that point, you don't have to let him in, but like, call 911, do something, stay with him. How must he have been feeling in that moment to be just stabbed out of nowhere? And the one person that he sees to get help, they drive away from him. Like, that was his last lifeline. And he can't even, he's losing all this blood. He's trying to call 911 for himself. Like, this is unacceptable, man. We got to do better. This, humanity's screwed, and we're not going to come back from it if we continue to let ourselves degrade like this. It's very disturbing, and it's hard to think about.
I just wish you were more honest and open with your opinion, Stephanie. That's the one thing I hope as we grow as a channel, you're more open to just being who you are and saying what you really think.
You asked me what I thought. I told you what I thought.
I know. I'm joking. So I want to hear from you guys. I'm a little indifferent about it, but I honestly wanted to, we'll leave it as the question this week. We want to hear from you guys. Yes, there's a lot to learn, but what do you think about the fact that, yeah, you could be a victim of a crime, but also you could be the witness or someone who becomes involved in a crime like this, where a victim or a witness approaches you and needs help. What are you doing in this situation? Are you pulling away and calling police? Are you getting out of the car to try to render assistance?
Are you pulling away and not calling police?
Not calling police? Or you're just like, hey, not my problem, I'm out of here?
Yeah.
Way down in the comments below. Let us know what you think. We really want to hear your thoughts on this. We're a growing community. We appreciate all the engagement we're seeing in the comments. A lot of people are really enjoying Crime Weekly News as far as it's a little different than what we do normally. So we're liking it as well because it does give us an opportunity to talk about things that are topical, that are not necessarily geared towards what we do as far as our format. So this is an opportunity to cover those things. One final question I had for you, Stephanie, and then we'll wrap it up. And this isn't even a plug. I didn't notice this till we started recording. Did you already tailor your Criminal Coffee merchandise? Did you already cut it up?
Yeah, I did cut it up.
I was like, is she tucking that in or did she chop the neck out of it already?
No, I did. I get weird if things are tight around my neck.
Okay. Okay.
So I like to have
it looks good. It's a good job. It's clean. It's symmetrical.
Cute, right? Yeah. I should be on Project Runway.
Everyone's gonna be chopping up their stuff now. I know we're gonna get a lot of you have already started posting your gear, your mugs. Please keep doing that. Make sure you're tagging us. We're posting it. It's great to see it. So if you're cutting your stuff up like Stephanie is, make sure you're sharing it. Make sure you tag at Drink Criminal Coffee or tag Stephanie and I as well. We will post it. Any final thoughts from you? Because we still got to record Crime Weekly now, part 6 of West Memphis.
Oh, it's part 6?
Part 6. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Nope, but I'm going with it. I think it is part 6, though.
You might be right. I wrote part 5 when I was writing the
script. Part 5 was definitely last week.
Oh, so well, then part 6 is definitely this week.
That's what I'm thinking. All right, guys, as always, we appreciate you joining us here on Crime Weekly News. Stay safe out there. We will see you next week.
Bye.